We are getting so close to the weekend, so we got another deck to go over, break down, show the core, show the text, and my updated list. Today it is Popsicle Control. We're going that route as opposed to Sisu on Ice because not all of these lists play Sisu. If you follow the spreadsheet, well, you would see that in the last 2 weeks, or I guess since September 1st, this deck has topped more than any other deck of the format. Case in point, and a big reason of that, it has a very good Steel Song matchup. So lo and behold, if your locals is full of Steel Song, maybe this is a deck you should pick up. So how this goes over, we have some highlighted cards on the screen. Then we will break down the deck core, which the deck core for me means cards that were played in every single top. I believe there's like 30 some tops that we use to compile this video. So the deck core is the minimum cards played in every single top. And then after that, we're going to go over the tech cards, talk about them all, and those are cards that also saw play in the tops, but not in every single list. And then an updated list for you guys. Dreamborn link is down below, and if you don't follow that spreadsheet, link is down below. What are you waiting for? It's a lot of good information. Thank you guys for coming on back, though. So let's hop right on into it. First and foremost, we have Tipo, one of the new cards from Shimmering Skies, and Tipo is essentially a fishbone quill on turn 2 that is a body. It's not an item, so it doesn't pair up with your Hiram Flaversham, but speaking of him, well, the Toy Maker is your draw engine of the deck, and you're going to see him with Popsicles, with Fishbone Quills, and Lucky Dimes as your powerful items that just give this deck so much value, whether it's draw, ramp, or lore. Those three get it done. In addition to that, you are ramping, and what are you ramping for? You have power cards such as Tamatoa, who can also get your items back, and you can actually have a nice little loop between Tamatoa, Hiram, and Popsicle, where you quest with your Hiram, you get your pop your Popsicle, you draw 2 cards. Then you quest with your Tamatoa, you add your Popsicle back to your hand, you play it, you get to draw a 3rd card, and then you can do it all again next turn. It is a very devastating loop, and it gets you a lot of advantage. The 5/8 body on Tamatoa is nothing to joke around about either. Another power card is Maleficent, and really just Ruby in general. We also have Be Prepared, and then so many other strong cards. So again, let's go ahead and go into that deck core. These cards, it's actually a small core, which when we're dealing with a bigger sample size like 30 plus, the core is going to continue to get smaller and smaller, and that's just because the more samples there are, the more chances there are that less cards are played. So there were lists playing Tipo. Typically, Tipo, though, has been a 3 or 4 of, but there was a few lists that did just run him at 1. So 1 is the minimum. That's how this works. Remember, that's the only time I'm going to say it. That is how this works. The minimum. Tipo typically coming in as a 3 or 4 of. Again, it's a Fishbone Quill on turn 2, and it's a body that sticks around. The Hiram Flaversham, no surprise here. He is a mandatory 4 of in the deck. Maui kind of surprised me at 2. I understand 3, and well, 4 is the most common ratio, but again, I understand 3. There's a lot of consistency cards, and you can get to him, but the 6 attack on a rush character is just so good. Mufasa, being able to get cards back from your inkwell and reset your inkwell seems very OP, and I guess that's why he found his way into the core. Lots of lists played him at 1. A handful of lists did play him at 3. I don't know where you want to rank or put him personally. I think as a 1 of, it's a very strong card. Tamatoa, nearly every single list played it at 4, but a couple played it at 3. Again, this is just kind of like Hiram. This is a card that is going to be in these lists. Maleficent, the ratios on this card were anywhere from 1, 2, 3, and 4. They are all over the place. So, well, choose your blowout cards as you wish. Being 9 costs, I understand why you may not want to play, but the 7/5 quest for 2 is pretty strong. Be Prepared also kind of in that same vein as Maleficent. It's a pick not your poison, pick your weapon, if you will, and which blowouts, which strong cards, which closers, which route do you want to go? Another mandatory card, Popsicle. It's your turn 1. It's an item, and it says draw a card. not a whole lot more to say about that. You're going to play it at 4 with things like Tipo and other cards coming in from the new set Shimmering Skies. Fishbone Quill has seen some less play. Also, you can use something like Great Stone Dragon if you wish for your ramp. There's still things like your 1 jump. There is, like I said, there's a lot more options into the ramping package now with the new set. So some lists were cutting Fishbone Quill down a little bit. Lucky Dime, usually it's a 1 or a 2 of. I understand both reasons. You can get it back, and if you're not playing the cards like 1 jump ahead that ink off the top of your deck, you know, playing 1 isn't as detrimental because you don't run that risk of just inking it off the top of your deck and not hitting it. So where do we go with our tech cards? I'm going to disappear for a little bit because there is a lot of tech cards here. There's a lot of tech cards here. So we have Gaston. He's a 4/2 Reckless. Remember, Reckless is not Rush. But why is this card seeing play? This card sees some play because Daisy Duck in Steel Song is a 1/4 stat line character who quests for 2. Well, Gaston has 4 strength, so he can one-shot the Daisy Duck. That's why he is seeing some play. On to Queen of Hearts having Rush being a 2/2. Again, a nice option to go into a Daisy Duck, to go into Hyper Aggro, to go into these faster strategies because she comes down out of your hand, has Rush, and can do it right away. In addition to that, her 2/2 means she can swing into Daisy on turn 2 with her Rush and put 2 damage on Daisy, take 1, and then on turn 3 she can finish Daisy off, putting those other 2 damage on her. Chicha, Dedicated Mother. So it's a 2/1 with support, and essentially when you put a card into your inkwell, if it's the second card, key wording here, if it's a second card, not if it's not the first, not in addition to, it means the second card. So it will only net you 1 draw per copy of Chicha in that turn. You don't get multiple draws if you keep inking. It's an option for a draw engine, so that's why Chicha's there. Scuttle, Expert on Humans, being able to look at the top 4 of your deck, kind of like Ariel for songs, except Scuttle is for items. There was a deck playing a small Donald Duck package, which included the 3-drop, where when this character challenges, each opponent loses 1 lore. It's a way to slow their lore down. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of the card, but again, it was played, so we're going to talk about it. The next card I'm a huge fan of in this deck, Sisu Daring Visitor. Evasive 1/1, that's not that great, but when you play this character, banish a chosen opposing character with 1 strength or less. Daisy Duck, Hyper Aggro cards, and your opponent's Hiram Flaversham. In addition to that, you pair this up with a ice block, and then guess what? Now you can start to hit characters that originally had 2 strength. You drop them with the ice block, and then you play your Sisu, and you can take out many more threats because of it. I really like Sisu Daring Visitor in this deck. The other 3-drop Sisu, I said it in the Ruby Amethyst video. The name of the game is card advantage. It is consistency. It's everyone's trying to have the most resources you can, and this is a card that just gets better when your opponent has more resources in their hand, so that's a really strong reason to play it. 4 willpower and questing for 2, also good reasons to play it. The Queen is another card kind of like Scuttle, where you can try to get items, and if it costs 3 or less, you can actually play it for free, but it enters Exerted, which isn't that big of an issue. It's just free advantage. Potentially it's another just card to tutor out items. Belle, so she can quest for 5 if you have 10 or more cards in your inkwell, which is something this deck does incredibly well. And in addition to that, during your turn, you may put an additional card from your hand into your inkwell. Keep in mind, unlike Fishbone Quill, where you get to ink a card, this allows you to perform the inking action. So Belle requires it to be an inkable card. Grandma Tala is just one of those consistency cards. Look at the top 2, put 1 in your hand. Not a bad deal there. And then finishing off that Donald Duck package, we have the Pie Slinger. You can hit him with the 4 shift after the turn 3 Donald, and when you play this character, if you use shift, each opponent loses 2 lore. So it's a nice little way to essentially make your opponent lose 3 lore if you need to, because you can use the first one, then you can shift on him, exerted already, and since you shifted, your opponent loses 2 lore. If an opponent has 10 or more lore, he gains 6 extra strength, which puts him as a 9/6. That's pretty neat, I guess. I'm not huge on the Donald Duck package, but I mean, it is there. Going a little bit further, we do also have the Sapphire Donald Duck, the focused Flatfoot. And when you play this character, you put top card of your deck into your inkwell face down and exerted. quests for 2, and he is inkable. So it's kind of like a turn 5 1 jump that's a body on board. Quest for 2. Into those 6 drop spots as we start to get into the stronger characters. I do apologize, there's so many on here. I know the graphics not that great, so that's why I'm just going one by one through them, and I'm trying to give you guys the whole names on the cards. The next 2 are Lady Tremaine, Imperious Queen, and Madame Medusa the Boss. Shouldn't really need to say too much about these. They've been Ruby staples for multiple formats. Tremaine, obviously your opponent being able to choose and banish one of their characters, gets around things like Ward. And Medusa, you get to choose, but it has to have 3 strength or less, which again, Ice Block can help out a lot here. Continuing on in our 6 drop spots, Maximus. At the end of your turn, if you have a character with 5 or more strength, like Tamatoa, like Sisu, like Scar, like these big powerhouse cards, you gain 2 lore. And if they have 10 or more strength, you gain 5 lore. Instead, you're probably not getting that. But it quests for 2 and can net you 2 lore at the end of your turn, just for having a Tamatoa. That's pretty good. I think only one list was playing the Maximus, so he finds his way into our tech sheet. However, you know, realistically, not many people are playing it. Kind of like Belle, Ariel's another way to be able to quest for 5 in a singular turn. The 3 strength does mean it falls victim to your opponent's Medusas. However, she has Ward, so she doesn't fall victim to your opponent's Medusas. Somebody's going to comment down below saying she has Ward, that doesn't work. That's how you know who actually watches the video, who hears just one little thing and then they hurry up and go be a comment warrior. But anyway, so Ariel is, again, she has Ward, which is really nice for her, and she can quest for 5 if you have more items than your opponent, and if you don't, she still quests for 3, so that's pretty good, but it is uninkable. And me personally, I think that this deck just, it typically can run so many uninkable cards, but you usually want them to be your bigger blowout cards, and you already have things like Tamatoa, or if you wanted to play Belle, to be able to quest for a lot in a little period of time. Another new card is Cusco, Selfish Emperor. When you play this character, put chosen item, location into its player's inkwell. One or the other, not both. And also, you can pay 4 ink. Your other characters gain resist +1 until the start of your next turn. It doesn't come up that often, but once in a while, it can sneak out a win. He does quest for 2 and is inkable. So it's kind of like the Yzma in the Amethyst deck. Kind of funny how Cusco and Yzma kind of mirror each other-ish. She hits characters, he hits items or locations, opposite sides of the coin, just like the movie. Scar, Vicious Cheater's another 7 cost power card with Rush, and again that's 6 strength for the Maximus. But the funner fact with this card, kind of like Be Prepared, right? You board wipe your opponent, he has 6 strength, 5 willpower, but when he does when he banishes a character in a challenge, you can ready him again. He cannot quest, but he can go ahead and challenge their board and usually take out like 3 or more threats, which essentially, you know, is a Be Prepared, but you don't lose your characters. So that's why we see Scar getting played at some degree. Hades Infernal Schemer, a 3/6. When you play it, you put a character into your opponent's inkwell. If their character is shifted, both characters go into the inkwell. Just so we're clear. Sisu Empowered Sibling did see play in the majority of lists, especially when the little Sisu Daring Visitor is so good this format too. Shifting for 6. When you play this character, banish all opposing characters with 2 or less strength. And again, we said it again. Ice Block helps out. I'm just saying that's a lot of unequal cards, but for 5/4 stat line with questing on 3, she's pretty good. And this deck gets your inkwell built so quickly that even paying 8 is not that bad. Gaston, the 9 drop. For each damage character you have in play, pay 2 less ink to play this character. Okay, so there's actually a decent chance you could get him out for 5 or even less ink potentially, and he has Rush and he's a 10/6. I still don't think he's worth it, but it was kind of neat to see someone topped playing him. Likewise, Sheriff of Nottingham, kind of on a similar vein. He's a 5/9 who quests for 3 and has support. That is huge. Giving 5 strength to another character, that is huge. But he also, for each item you have in play, you pay 1 less ink to play him. So kind of similar in that regard, where they have ways to go ahead and play them a little bit cheaper. And that is it for the characters. And then we have Develop Your Brain. Obviously you get to look at 2 cards, put one into your hand. Another new card then, Hideaway. Put chosen item or location into its player's inkwell face down and exerted. You can out an opponent's item or location for just 2 ink. Or you can put one of your expired items that you just have no other use for into your inkwell if you need to build it up. You can do it. Not saying you're always going to, but you can. Vision of the Future. This card I was really surprised to not see as a core card in this deck, even as like a 2 of, but look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Put one into your hand. That is so good. It's kind of like dig a little deeper, right? Look at the top 7, add 2. But that costs 8 and is uninkable. This costs just 2 and it's inkable. I cannot believe this card is not in the deck core for so long. Develop Your Brain was in the deck core here, and I thought for sure this card would replace it. Kinda did, but it was not played in all of them. And it's not like one list didn't play it. There was actually a handful that did not play this card at all. So that's why he is not in the deck core. Another card I'm really shocked that isn't in the deck core is Brawl. This card just feels so good this format. It is good into the Mirror Match, and it is good into Steel Song. These are the 2 best decks in the format. Kind of blows my mind. Again, I know you have a lot of other answers, and that's why people choose to not play it. You have the Sisu line, the Shift line, I get it. But to me, I still feel like Brawl should be a minimum 2 of in any Ruby deck. Going into some songs, your 1 jump and your How Far. These are your ramping tools. How Far obviously costing 4, but being able to add the other card to your hand and you get to look at both is just kind of nice, because now you also know what is going into your inkwell. I really like these as a ramp package. However, the way the deck has been developing, they've kind of fallen out of favor. And especially with the Ruby deck, I think other Sapphire decks, I really like this package, but Ruby already has so many uninkable cards that it just kind of gets hard to play these. Let It Go, another card that you can use to out your opponent's characters, kind of like Hades, and put them into the inkwell. Dig a little deeper. Dinkang Fam was the first one who really played this card and put it on the map, if you will. I know other people played it, so someone's going to call me out on that. He was the first one to really play it at a DLC. I should specify that, and kind of put it on the map. It's a actually pretty strong card. You can, 1, sing together, or 2, you know, you get to 8 ink pretty easy. Looking at the top 7 cards of your deck and putting 2 into your hand, it just feels unfair. Some other items that saw play. Ruby Chromacon. Exert it and a character gets +1 strength this turn. Not too bad. It's also inkable if you need. Shield of Virtue. Ready a chosen character and they cannot quest for the turn. It costs 3 ink to perform, but it's another option. Vitalisphere. Banish it to give Rush and +2 Challenger this turn. Another utility card. We mentioned Ice Block a few times already. Basil's Magnifying Glass and Scrooge's Top Hat. Both of these were played in one specific list, and I was like, this list is just going to make this whole video kind of goofy. But then I was like, went up and looked, and it was like a 50-something person tournament. I'm like, well, you know, if it was a 20-person tournament where we're only taking the top 2 decks, I probably would have excluded it just for it being so off the wall. But being a 50-plus person event, I felt obligated for the integrity of what we're trying to do here to include these cards into the tech list. Basil's Magnifying Glass. Exert it, pay 2 ink, look at the top 3 cards of your deck and reveal an item card and put it into your hand. The rest go to the bottom of your deck in any order. And then Scrooge's Top Hat. Exert it, pay 1 ink, you pay 1 ink less. Very big difference there. You don't pay an ink, you pay 1 ink less for the next item you play this turn. Fang Crossbow. Exert it, pay 2, chosen character gets -2. Kind of works on that same vein as Ice Block. And additionally, you can exert it, banish it, and banish chosen dragon character. Sisu. Great Stone Dragon. It enters play, exert it, and then afterwards you can exert it, put a character from your discard into your inkwell. It's just a nice way to use already expired resources to just continue developing your game plan. Almost done. Maurice's Workshop. Nice little draw engine. Each time you play another item, you can pay an ink and draw a card. So you just essentially trade ink for drawing new cards. It's, again, Saw some play towards the end of last format, and it's seeing a little bit of play in this format. Merlin's Carpet Bag is a 5-cost item. Exert it, pay 1, return an item card from your discard to your hand. So it's just a way to start recycling your items and getting them back to your hand. And lastly, McDuck Manor saw play in one of the topping lists. So, what does the updated deck look like? If I were to play at a DLC, and I think you get the hint by now, I'm not going to a DLC this weekend. I'm in my bedroom across the country and across the world from the other one. So, anyway, this is the list that I would put out there. It's Lorcana's best deck, right? Well, like I said, in the last 3 weeks now, it has topped more than any other deck. It has won more than any other deck, I think. Without looking at the spreadsheet. I'm pretty sure this is the deck that was first. Tempo is actually doing really good. I'm just saying, we have a video on that as well, if you want to go check that out. Anyway, so we're playing 4 Tipo. Again, he's kind of like an early ramp tool, gets a body on board. I really like him for that regard. 3 Sisu Daring Visitor. I said it, I meant it. I love this card, this format. This card is so good. I hate playing Ruby this format and not playing this card. It just feels wrong. Grammatala, because consistency, consistency, consistency. That's what we love. It's the name of the game at this point in every format moving forward. It's going to continue to be the name of the game. This isn't set 1 anymore. This ain't set 2 anymore. This is set 5. Everything now is going to be about consistency and advantage. Those are the main 2 things that determine if a deck is going to be good, because our card pool is big enough now. Hiram. Duh. Maui. Again, I debated putting Maui at 3, especially when I got down to my last 2 cards. I ended up cutting 2 Gastons. I was like, do I really need the Gaston for that Daisy Duck answer? I'm like, I already have a good Steel Song matchup. I'm playing 3 Sisus. I'm playing Brawls. It felt like Gaston wasn't needed. It felt a little niche and specified, whereas other cards answer more threats. So for that reason, I ended up pulling the Gaston. I left the 4th Maui too. I don't debate or don't regret it whatsoever. I think it was the right call. And then I actually flip-flopped these ratios right before doing the video. I'm like going back and forth and like testing and going. And I'm like, oh man, do I want 3 Medusa, 2 Sisus? And then I was like, yes. And then I'm like, no. And then I'm like, yes. And then right before the video, I'm like, no. So here we are. We have 2 Medusas and the 3 Sisus, which even if you have to pay 8 for the Sisu, that's not that bad. You can still get crazy advantage out of her. Like I said, in this deck, personally, I think Mufasa as a 1-of is plenty good. 4 Tamatoas, a couple Maleficent Dragons. Again, this is a card where his ratios are just everywhere. 2 Hideaways. It's just a 2-cost card to out of location, out an item. Just, get rid of those Queen's Castles. That's really a big one. Get rid of them darn castles. And then you have, you can get rid of flutes too if people, if you're staring down some flutes, because we don't really have item removal, but we do. 2 1 Jump Ahead. It was Gaston or 1 Jump Ahead. I'm like, I felt 1 Jump Ahead was better into more scenarios than Gaston was. These were the 2 main cards. Otherwise, it's like cut a Maui, cut 1 other card. And I was really close to cutting the 2 1 jumps, because in addition to that, it's uninkable, which would bring my uninkable count down even more. And I believe we're at 18, right? One of these times I'm actually going to write all my information down. So we got 3, 5, 8, 9, 11, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So we're at 19. That's not bad. Last format, these decks typically ran from like 19 to 22 uninkables. So we're at 19. We're at the bottom of that. I'm okay with that. There's a lot of consistency cards. There's a lot of cards that let you dig, let you look. I'm perfectly fine with 19 uninkable cards. You can mulligan them away, because most of your uninkable cards cost 6 or more, and you don't even want them early anyway. And then you also have turn 2 cards like Vision. Like the Vision, right? Can't even remember the name. We're literally just talking about it, but these pictures on my computer are smaller than you can. Yeah, Vision of the Future. Sorry. Apologies for that. Breathe. Breathe, John. Breathe. It's only been 24 minutes. Holy cow, it's been 24 minutes. Anyway, okay. Let's try and get this done for you guys. I know you like me, but you don't like me that much. Visions of the Future. So looking at top 5 cards and adding 1 to your hand. Cards like this are why you can play so many unequal cards, because you can mulligan them all away, because then you get to look at your top 5 cards and be like, yeah, I want it back now. Brawl. 3 Brawl, 3 Sisu. Those are my answers to Daisy. Those are my answers to Hirams. I think it's perfectly fine. I like it a lot. If you have to, you're in a pinch, you have Let It Go's as well. Let It Go, I'd rather hit something like a Tamatoa or some bigger threat. But anyway, nonetheless. 3B prepareds. 4 feels unnecessary. Definitely feels unnecessary. And the 1 Dig a Little Deeper. I was debating on it, and I put it in here, and then like going through the deck, I started at 80 cards. When I put everything into the deck, I had 80 cards. I'm like, hey, I think I was at like 26 uninkables. I'm like, I want to get that down to at least 20. That was the mark I wanted to do. We did that. +1. Kudos. And Dig a Little Deeper actually never even crossed my mind to take it out. Like, focusing on consistency so much here. Like, that's why we have the Talas. We have the Hirams. We have Mufasa. He gets you 2 cards back from your Inkwell. You don't get to choose them. They're, you know, maybe that's a stretch calling him a consistency card. But you also have Vision. You also have the Dig a Little Deeper. Then you have the Popsicles. So consistency was a huge thing here. Sometimes you just need that extra little damage. So the Ruby Chromacon is just really nice. And in addition to that, guess what? You get the Ruby Chromacon down versus Ruby Amethyst or anything Amethyst, and all of a sudden your Maui can one-shot a Queen's Castle. That's the biggest reason why we're playing the Chromacon here, because Maui takes out Castle in just 1 swing. Yahoo! I'm enthusiastic. I know. 2 Ice Blocks, 4 Popsicles, 3 Fishbone Quills. I felt between the quills. You can also use the Hideaway if you have to on yourself. We have the T-Pose. I just felt like 3 Quill was enough. And then 2 Lucky Dimes on the end. Again, we're not really playing other than... Oh, I guess we have the 1 jump. So I was like, do I just cut 1 Lucky Dime too? I actually played 1 last format. But going back to the 2, I just I don't know. Like, maybe it's like with the Gaston. It was 2 Gaston, 2 1 jumps, and then probably 1 Dime or Maui. And I really think Gaston was the right card to cut there. But anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around even longer than normal. And my dry sense of humor and my absolutely wonderful happy face. Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, like, share, subscribe, comment down below. What other decks do you want to see like this? We did Tempo, Ruby Amethyst. Here's Sisu. Spoiler alert. We're going to do the other Tier 1 deck tomorrow, Steel Song. And then hopefully after this weekend, we have more results, because I have a handful of decks then that have like 5 tops or so. But I want a bigger sample size, guys. We need more tops to make these more educational, to make these more gooder. Way more gooder. Thanks for watching. Take care. Hit that button. The one right down there.